Okay, we'll get started. I think we're a couple minutes in now. I just wanted to bring up the component audit. I'm hoping to close that out this iteration. So just one last PSA if you want to check it out. I've linked the issue in point A. It just talks about like what I think each component should have, like whether it should be multiple versions of a content type or one content type with multiple variants and all of that. But I think ultimately it'll be up to the person building the thing. So I went into the issues that I could find for content types that we're building in the CMS and added a link to that issue if anyone wants to reference it while they're building out those pieces. I think a lot of that pre-work is kind of was done this iteration anyway, but it's there if you want to look at it or if you have thoughts and opinions. I guess Barker was asking me kind of like what happens to this, and I think it was just a nice visual way to kind of see what all we have on our website. But I think going into the future, when it gets to the point where content editors start making stuff in the CMS, they might not know which content types to use. And I know that we're planning on like building out a page and only allowing certain content types on that page. Like solutions pages only have these types of content available to them. But I'm not sure how that works with creating I'm doing the heroes, for example. And if I make one hero that just has a bunch of like different variants, like there's either a primary button and a secondary button, or there's a background image, or there's like a foreground image and a background color, like all of these kind of options. If that's all just one big hero and you pick and choose the parts that you want, it means that any hero, the one hero is used on all pages, and we can't really force people to use like a solutions version of that hero or like a events version of that hero. Oh, yeah, there's a waiting room here and I have to like admit people. This is not my meeting. I don't know why I was given these powers. Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much it. A quick TLDR. I know that a couple people are joining now, but yeah, just take a look at the component audit. I don't know what it looks like in the future, but maybe there's a visual library that we can give to people, content creators or content editors later. But for now, I'm going to close that guy out. And yeah, that's all I have.
And sorry, the recommendation here is to, opposed to have like unique ones for different scenarios, have one extensive one that can be, yeah,
can do it all. Yeah. I know looking at like the cards, for example, we have so many different cards, and like, do we just have one super mega card that like does everything? Like, it's going to be up to the person who ends up building each of these things as we go. But since in Contentful we can only have 100 types of content, we're kind of limited with just like we can't have 12 different heroes. I don't know how many we can have. We'll see, I guess, as we build them. But
yeah,
it's just trying to save.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that'll be the easiest to manage, just in terms of like if we are deciding to make a change to something, we don't need to, okay, well, how does it change here, here, and here? Just the trade-off is, yeah, governance in terms of if someone is trying to use something in a certain way that they may be using it a different way, or they should use it a different way. I think that's just kind of the trade-off that we're getting here. But it seems like that could be solved through something else, not through kind of like blocking the component. It could be through education and things like that. So yeah, I mean, like I think just sort of like generally, it seems like your recommendation is probably that's the way I would recommend going, opposed to having sort of like unique, here we have 20 different heroes. I think that'd be really challenging to manage, and then multiply that through all the components on our experience. I think could be really challenging and probably gets away from the purpose of this, if we were to do something like that. So yeah, I think this recommendation makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Cool. And then I didn't mention this, but sorry, Mateo. I don't know. Wait.
I was just gonna say, when it comes to the code, do we keep the 100 hero files and then pick one through the contentful uh, JSON, or do we just make that into one huge hero file?
I
How
don't
are we
know.
gonna do that in the code?
I don't know. That's like my only CMS piece for this iteration is the hero, and starting to like map it all out in my mind is a big job. So I think my plan is to just make one hero for now, and then we might just keep extending it and extending it. But yeah,
I think that can get very hard to maintain in the future. Maybe having the separate files for the variants of the hero, but picking one similar to what we do with the component is, where we have like the empty template and fill in with whatever component is needed. Because I don't want something like the copy media component that we had to happen where it was like 300, 400 file lines of code to render a copy. So yeah,
that's true. That's true. Yeah, the component is a good idea. Yeah.
And just so I'm understanding that, that's the difference between like we have one component and you can kind of just pick and choose what you want in something, opposed to starting with like I just to make sure I understand what that means, or if there's any sort of like impact from a design perspective. Is that just kind of sort of the approach from an engineering perspective, or would there be any impact from the
it,
experience?
it's just the engineering perspective where we
Okay.
could switch across the variants in a single file or have it split up across multiple files.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
it
see.
keeps it
Okay.
cleaner. Um, yeah. And then I guess the other piece is like we have pages that are like beautiful and like not cookie cutter pages, like the AI pages and the why GitLab page, like pages that like have animations and like fun stuff that are like the one-off pages and do not belong. Those components don't belong in Contentful, like the one-offs. So our plan is to just keep those separate in buyer experience for now, or are we ever gonna like keep the styling, I guess, for those in buyer experience? How are we managing those?
I guess how is the content gonna be made in Contentful for those pages? Is it going to be a separate content type that describes the whole page, or
Okay,
how are we going to do that?
everything is an entry, like so people can still edit the content, but they can't change anything
I guess if we're
structure.
sure it's not going to change, then it could still be a YAML file, I guess, but then we
Mm,
would have to manage YAML and Contentful at the same time.
right, right. Okay, that sounds like a future problem. What-
I mean, you can have a static, I don't know, a page example, like the platform page. We could just have like a static content type for the platform page. You can't move anything around. It's purely just like fields to enter. And I think we could adjust the roles. Like if we don't want anyone touching that, we can just set the role to us as developers. So I'd still put it in Contentful.
Yeah, I agree. I guess the only downside for that is having one extra content type created for every one-off, since we have a limit of content types.
True.
What was the limit again? It's like 75 or something?
yeah, I think we allotted 25 to blog, right? And so we get 75 for, but I don't know if navigation plays into that. I don't know. I thought it was 100, but I don't know if we've gone to our parents and asked if we can have more money and they've given us a new allowance. I don't know.
Um, and so this is like those unique pages, each unique page will take up a content type. Is that right? Like the GitLab Duo page.
I guess that's one approach.
Yeah, I think they would be built up of a content type that we could probably reuse. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah.
Mhm. I think I'm trying to understand, like it's like a finite we can only have a finite amount of these unique pages based off this number. Is that correct?
If we do it each as a content type, then yes. If we create like a base content type for the one-offs that we can somehow link, no, that would need more content types. Yeah. I can't think of a way to add it to Contentful without taking a lot of content types.
Oh, interesting, Megan. And just to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, like, are you saying that, for instance, so take a look at the GitLab Duo page, for example. Are you saying there's going to be multiple content types within that?
I mean, that's up to us as a team to figure out, what should be a content type. And like looking at the GitLab Duo page, like I don't know what that section is but it's like the cool little like the little image that goes down, and it's like AI powered workflows, privacy first, blah blah blah. Like if we don't want anyone to really update that, like we could make the whole page a content type, and it's like, okay, you can't, like the hero is always going to have a title, subtitle, and a button. That cool image thing is always going to be like the image on the left, and like 4 chunks of content. Like there's something you can do about that. You could edit the headers if you want. Like it, as developers already, we're breaking out your designs into components, right? So like we have a button component thanks to Slippers, our design system. Like we have little atoms as components already, and sometimes those atoms build up like an entire hero component or carousel component. So it's just kind of like, how do we build these out in our mental model? Because like I know we have a button content type already because that's used everywhere. We should just might as well make one. And we could have a hero content type, or like we could have a huge chunk of the page be part of the page content type. And like, yeah, I don't know. There's so many ways we could do it. It's just we all have to be on the same page on how we break these things down.
Mm-hmm.
So if
Okay,
there's
yeah, that makes
things
sense.
across pages, like I don't know, like this GitLab Duo hero, it's an image on the right, H1, some subtext and a button. I think that's kind of used in many places across our site. That might be a shared hero content type, but it's all up to us.
Well, on the bright side, we're just doing like more template style pages for now. So it's whatever gets that check mark at the end of the OKR time. That's any other thoughts? Stop the recording.